Good afternoon, cartooning class. This is Mr. Verzat. Today what I'm going to do is give you a short example on how an artist presents their material. There are a couple of different areas that you approach when you do that. First of all, you want to look at what you do. You want to look at why you do it. And also, you want to look at who inspired you to do it that way. Artists don't exist on an island. No person actually sits alone in the woods, learns how to draw, and then makes their work. We all rub shoulders against each other. Whether it's learning how other people act in the world around us and that inspires us to do different things, or looking at other art styles that intrigue us and makes us want to go, I want to do that. And that's how we grow. We all shave little pieces off from our surrounding environment, from the people around us, from the artists that inspire us, to make us who we are. And so this is going to be one of my presentations that I made back when I was in college. You guys are going to do the exact same thing to tell me a bit about yourselves. Since you're advanced artists, you guys have learned quite a few things up to getting to this point. This is me from back in like 2002, a long time ago. Those of you who read comic books may see a little bit of an influence on manga, Japanese art. I started reading comics when I was very young, so that was American stuff. And then it was about in high school, that's when Japanese cartoons started to come out, and that really inspired my art, mainly because of the ability that they had to capture action, to capture motion, physics, and just the overall things that really appealed to me. And that formed an idea in my head. One of the things I wanted to do to practice was to learn the human form, and so I created a comic book revolving completely around stick figures in order to help me do that. I filled up 3 separate volumes and 3 separate binders full of this comic, this long epic, and I decided to redo it once I became better at art later on in life, and I refined it and tried to apply professional level production ability to it. And here are just some samples of it, using Japanese cartooning techniques such as simplified forms, black and white, because if you're in black and white you can capture motion a little bit better. You don't have the colors get interfering with all that. The mind kind of interprets what you're looking at a little bit better because, once again, lines are symbols, and it's by looking at those symbols that our brain goes, oh yeah, that's a car, or oh yeah, that's an animal or a guinea pig. And so a simpler execution means that we experience it a little bit deeper. Color just adds extra flair to it, and that's just my personal interpretation. I try to incorporate action and some comedy, some cute cuddliness, and some destructive martial arts and explosions. In most of my comic books I blow stuff up a lot, mainly because I love the way physics works. I love action, and if you create your own little world, you can totally do whatever you want to that world. In a way, you're playing God over a small little creation of your own, and you can do whatever you want to it. American comics taught me dynamic composition, really steep and sharp camera angles, constantly shifting between different types of perspective. For example, up on the top over here we've got 1-point perspective, and then we've got 3-point perspective on the bottom, and in the middle we've got no-point perspective. That would just apply to, say, a landscape piece. But American comics are great at dynamics. Japanese comics are great at physics and black and white effects, and making it look like you can feel the explosion. You can feel the asphalt flying through the air after this guy flies through a building, and so on. And these are all examples of the comic book in its raw form. I actually go in afterward and add digital effects to it. Gray tones, screen tones, and digital lighting, and so forth. Like this. I also love cities. I never really traveled that much. I want to change that. But my parents, whenever we'd go someplace, rarely, I think I traveled to a big city maybe 3 or 4 times prior to my 20s, it fascinated me. I thought it was awesome. These towering, big mega structures, giant buildings and such. And then when I saw Japanese comics, man, they put a lot of detail into their backgrounds. You can see every little window ledge, and so that intrigued me, that inspired me, and so that's one thing that I was really interested in. And then I love maps. Just a little map of the mega city that's in my comic book. My parents had a National Geographic subscription when I was young, and I really loved to pull the maps out of the middle and look at them. It was really cool artwork. Here's one of my earlier watercolor paintings when I was just learning how to do it. The cartooning applied in my formal art as well, and I try to push the boundaries with things that are acceptable. This is, in my class, at this time, people were doing, nature scenes and elk and, real formal, Western style art things. And I thought, well, that's kind of stuffy. Let's, throw a wrench in that. So why not draw like an expensive dinner with a bunch of slugs trying to attack it, and one of them getting blasted with a fly swatter and little guts flying all over the place. That's how I use cartooning to engage my audience, to generate a reaction from them from seeing my work. So when you create work, it's not necessarily about making something pretty. It's also about, what do people do when they see your work? What do you want people to do when you see their work? How do you make it so that they do what you want to do when you see it? My goal was to make people laugh and go, oh, okay, that's weird. Also, I love abstract work, using color and light. Light and dark is a lot of fun. And this is watercolor. It's just about fracturing glass and order and chaos. There's really no meaning to it outside of that. Warm versus cool, polar opposites in a way. So you can experiment with all sorts of different types of art. So growing up, this is what I saw. I'm a child of the late 80s and early 90s. And one of the big things was Voltron, this big robot in the upper left. And when I was little, we're talking like 4 years old, I saw this guy on TV, and I was just totally infatuated with robots and, shiny metallic surfaces and things that blow up and all sorts of stuff. That was one of the first cartoons I ever watched. And then, it was Transformers after that. That kick-started major interest in all that kind of technological stuff. And then, the Ghostbusters, kind of a sci-fi, fantasy, horror type spin on things, the cartoon. G.I. Joe action figures. During the 80s, what they did is they tied in a lot of their marketing for their products in with actual cartoons that were on the air. The toys came first. The cartoons came second to get people to buy the toys. So here I am as a kid watching cartoons, and the very thing that I'm totally enamored with is on the shelf over here, So if I got like one little action figure, I was just like, oh, my whole world was around that. That's all I was exposed to. And of course, then you figure out how to draw. What are you going to draw if that's what your world is? Well, me, it was robots and cartoon characters and explosions and all sorts of stuff. That's kind of what made my art what it is today. Another artist that really influenced me was a Japanese artist who did the Akira movie and also the Akira graphic novel. His name's Katsuhiro Otomo. And this guy, he's renowned for making one of the first mega series graphic novels, like almost over 20,000 pages of artwork in one sitting. And so on the left, we got some scenes from the movie down here in the upper right. You can kind of see his style. He puts a lot of effect, a lot of detail in his backgrounds on top of what's going on in the foreground. So he kind of pushes the boundaries in that regard. Most of the time, your backgrounds are very bland, so they don't conflict with what goes on in the foreground and middle ground, because that's where your story's at in a comic. And so he makes these awesome backgrounds. He still makes it work. Another artist I love was Yukito Kushiro, and he does Battle Angel Alita. Again, his work is generally in black and white, but as you can see, he captures physics in his piece. He really gives you a sense of motion, like this weird-looking ball here flying through the air. That it feels like it's shooting through the air because of his special effects that he uses. Make it feel like it's moving. You can almost feel like every single little piece of metal flying through the air as this character is getting torn apart. Also, he uses some really cool digital effects in his work. Another artist was Akira Toriyama. He's the guy who did Dragon Ball Z. And when I saw that, I was used to just Superman and Batman, and then I see characters who could like blow up planets and stuff. It's all about power levels and all sorts of crazy things, and that just enamored me. That's when I was about 16. That's when I first saw that, and that just totally set me off, totally changed my artwork. And that's pretty much what helped me evolve into my cartooning today. And so going back, let's look back at the artwork again. I didn't copy any of that work. I just used the art styles to help evolve my own. It's what I was interested in. It's what I liked. And that's what I started to draw. And so my style started to kind of adapt from that. And as you can see, we've still got kind of attention to action, to effects and motion, like what you saw before. Attention to physics, attention to digital effects and textures and so on, and also detailed backgrounds. These are the things that really interest me. So the students, this was an example on how an artist talks about who they are, what influenced them and what kind of work they do and why. And so when you guys work on your presentations, refer to this one just as an example. Mainly this is just through the use of PowerPoint and screen capture software. But for you guys, you'll be doing it mainly live. If you want to record yours for future students, you're welcome to do that. And I'll just show you how to use the screen capture and editing software. It's a really fun tool to do. So I look forward to seeing you in class. I wish you luck on your assignment, and I will talk to you later. Bye.